Alright guys, we are gonna be reacting to how a forgotten Soviet cartoon exposed colonialism, this African tale. Thank you so much for support, guys. We're gonna react to this and see what's going on. It's gonna be very interested to see the perspective from the Soviet Union's culture aspect. Make sure you guys subscribe to my channel. I want to get to the 100,000 subscribers. You guys simply just click subscribe. I will really appreciate it. Let's jump in.
From 1963 that treats colonialism not as an exotic backdrop, but as a brutal human drama. In the opening scene of the African tale, a joyful white elephant, symbolizing a colonial invader, grins broadly as it brings gifts, cigarettes, and glossy magazines to a black man living alone in the African jungle. The scene is almost cheerful, but there's an unsettling edge. We know something is off. This unexpected image, a smiling colonial beast in a Soviet animation, is our hook. What is this story? It turns out to be a piercing allegory of imperialism, remarkable for its era. In a medium where Western cartoons often mocked or caricatured Africans, the African tale dared to show its black hero with dignity and depth. It raises a question that lingers: how did a short Soviet cartoon come to portray Africa's struggle so boldly?
Okay, let's see. Good music, like always. Classical music. Give me goosebumps.
Жил черный человек на своей земле. Щедро давала она свои плоды ему, ибо трудился он на ней в поте лица своего, как трудились и отец его, и дед, и прадед.
Very good animation, by the way. Very smooth. That's a pineapple. Coconut. He has a thick neck too, huh? It's strong. You having a peaceful time.
Но как-то раз на земле человека появился некий гость.
You know what's crazy? I was gonna say, you know that my kids watch the Russian Winnie the Pooh. I think it's a Soviet Union watch Russian Winnie the Pooh. I can react with you guys with that one. Let me know what you guys think. I can do that with you guys. And there's another one that they watch. There's multiple. It's like a little monkeys show that they watch as well. This is all Russian. Winnie Pooh.
Какая
Yeah.
богатая земля. Мне чертовски повезло, что я здесь первый из зверей.
Ah, Winston. Get them addicted right away.
Посмотри, человек, не слишком ли бесцеремонен твой гость?
А, черт. Пока человек увлеченно приобщался к высокой цивилизации, слон сожрал все, что мог. А так как пошел дождь, то настала очередь хижины. Человек обрадовался, что высокий гость лично посетил его скромное жилище. Но у слона были свои планы.
Uh-oh.
Ты удивлен, что так получилось, человек? Погоди.
Uh-oh.
Господин слон сейчас тебе все объяснит.
Видишь ли, парень, твоя черная кожа покрепче моей, да и здесь нет места для двоих, так что оставайся там, а я тут. Не скучай.
To understand why the African tale exists, we must set the clock to the early
Yo, this is some crazy stuff. That was kind of crazy.
1960s. This was the high noon of decolonization. In 1960 alone, 17 African nations won independence. By 1963, the year this cartoon premiered, Kenya had just shattered British colonial rule, electing Jomo Kenyatta, the former author of the story on which the film is based, as its president. Globally, the Cold War powers were vying for influence. The Soviet Union, which had formerly shown little interest in Africa, now saw an opening. The USSR took little interest before the 1950s, but decolonization of Africa offered opportunities to expand their influence. Soviet leaders publicly championed national liberation, offering aid and ideological support to anti-colonial movements. Artistic propaganda was part of this. Posters and films celebrated African heroes and denounced Western imperialism. For example, a 1961 stamp proclaims freedom to the nations of Africa. By contrast, much of Western media at the time either ignored African realities or depicted them in the old colonial cliché. As one scholar notes, US cartoon studios like Disney and Warner Brothers created many racist cartoons through the mid-1960s, perpetuating gross stereotypes of black people. In that environment, the African tale stands out as astonishingly ahead of its time. A modern viewer marvels that while Looney Tunes was still relying on minstrel show humor, this Soviet film depicts a black man as an actual human being. The setting, a Soviet studio in Moscow, seems unlikely for such a compassionate portrayal. This contrast is no accident.
That is a good point. I used to watch a lot of these cartoons back when I was younger, but I never saw it that way. This is my first time watching these cartoons, so it makes sense why the author, not the author, the narrator, saying that this is the first time in human history, I would say, where the black man in Africa is portrayed as a human being. I agree with that statement.
It reflects the Cold War narrative that framed the USSR as an ally of oppressed peoples in opposition to the West. As one researcher succinctly puts it, the cartoon reflects the struggle of a black man against colonizers for freedom and independence. And indeed it does, right from the very first frames. The story of the African tale is a concise fable drawn from a real African parable, The Gentleman of the Jungle by Jomo Kenyatta, written in 1938.
Что тут происходит? Спросил неожиданно появившийся лев.
Он отнял у меня хижину.
Как ты смеешь клеветать на моего лучшего друга? Под суд!
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Those are the French.
Вот ты уже и под судом, человек.
Слово потерпевшему, объявил председатель лев.
Господин председатель, уважаемые господа, я глубоко тронут вашим горячим желанием защитить меня от грубых нападок моего отсталого черного друга. Благодарю вас. Благодарю. Но, господа, прошу вас, будьте снисходительны к бедному черному человеку. Ему надо терпеливо объяснить, что в обмен на щедрые дары нашей цивилизации он обязан отдать то, что у него есть. Плоды, хижину, землю, а не вызывать возбуждение безответственными протестами. Именем высокого и авторитетного суда. Обвинение.
Человек, слушай же решение суда.
Умышленное нападение на господина слона. Присвоение имущества господина слона, сигарет и журналов. Виновен.
Решение наверняка будет справедливым.
Попытка вломиться в хижину.
Ведь господа звери известны как беспристрастные джентльмены. Издавна самим Богом призваны охранять интересы низших рас.
Виновен по всем пунктам и заслуживает самого строгого наказания. Но, учитывая отсталость и дикость человека, суд считает возможным на первый раз простить его и разрешить ему построить себе новую хижину.
Вот видишь, какие доброжелательные судьи. Сама справедливость.
Now he built another hut. The religion came in and took over. What the hell?
что же ты теперь будешь делать? Хорошо еще, что они не стали судить тебя за новые преступления. Воистину, они к тебе доброжелательны. А может быть, ты действительно виновен? Виновен в том, что не похож на них. Виновен в том, что это твоя земля.
Extracting all the resources.
Ведь надо же что-то делать.
A summary of the film's plot makes the allegory clear. A black man lives peacefully on his fruitful land. One day a white elephant arrives declaring, "What a rich land. I'm damn lucky to be the first of beasts here." He befriends the man, giving him a cigarette and glossy magazines, fetish objects of Western civilization. Distracted by these gifts, the man starts to enjoy high civilization, leafing through shiny ads and pinups, while the elephant gobbles up everything he could and occupied the owner's house. The man, bewildered, appeals to a court of jungle animals to evict the intruder. At the trial, the white elephant brazenly demands that in exchange for his gifts, the man must give everything and make no fuss. The lion judge, the elephant's close ally, blames the man for slandering the elephant's best friend. Predictably, the court rules against the man. In fact, it declares him guilty though backward and perhaps deserving pity. The man is allowed to rebuild a new hut, but each time he erects one, it is immediately snatched by another colonizing beast, a rhinoceros playing a cardinal's role, a hyena the prosecutor, a crocodile the advocate, and so on. Finally, the man constructs a large communal hut. As all the animals crowd inside, squabbling for ownership, the man calmly sets fire to it, and in panic, the colonizers flee, scattered into the jungle. In the end, he has tricked them out of his home and reclaimed his freedom. These narrative beats are loaded with symbolism. The animals are unmistakable stand-ins for European powers, each drawn with particular mannerisms. Even the names suggest it. The white elephant hints at a European colonial giant. The lion evokes British imperial majesty, etc. One Letterboxd reviewer captures it well. The film portrays all of Africa's major invaders as animals, with mannerisms so specific you can identify each country they represent.
Yeah,
Crucially,
exactly.
the black man is never savage.
That's what I said. That the police look like hyena, looks like the French.
Or infantilized. He works the land by day, stands quietly by night, and displays patience, intelligence, and ultimately courage. He is portrayed as a human being in full, not a caricature. As one fan enthused, this is probably the single best portrayal of colonialism they've ever seen. The hero isn't some caricature of a wild or savage man. He's shown as beautiful and strong and heroic. That heroism comes through in the allegory. The African hero is literally the man who outsmarts and withstands the predators, becoming the moral center of the story. In fact, a viewer praises how the fable represented the native African as man and the colonizing forces as animals, noting that the careful rendering of the man's face drove home his humanity. The allegorical symbolism is sharpened by explicit details. The white elephant safari suit, the glossy Western magazines, and the very courtroom drama underscore that this is colonialism mapped onto a jungle. None of this is vague. It is a blunt visual critique of exploitation. The colonizers speak the language of promises and order gifts, civilization, law, but the animation pulls no punches in showing their greed and cruelty. Even in its simplicity, every scene of the plot from gift to lawsuit to fire feels loaded with intention. As one Russian academic summary notes, the African tale is explicitly a story of the struggle of a black man against the colonizers for freedom and independence. This makes the film much more than a children's cartoon. It is a concise, bold parable of resistance.
И человек решил действовать.
That's him now building a hut.
Вот вам новая хижина. одна на всех.
What? So they all now want to be part of the hut. So they all want a piece of it. So they all want a piece of it.
Ну а теперь...
Oh.
Дорого обошлось человеку знакомство со звериной цивилизацией. Но зато он многое понял и многому научился.
There you go. Yeah, that was very good. It's a very good. Actually, what happened? A lot of these people just basically kicked them out. A lot of these countries didn't want more European rulers in their land, so that's what happened.
Beyond its plot, The African Tale is striking for its creative style. The animation is hand-drawn in a deliberately spare, folkloric manner. Backgrounds are often minimal, fields of golden grasses or simple night skies that keep the focus on characters as archetypes. The animals are drawn with expressive but not cartoonishly exaggerated faces and postures, fitting their roles. The elephant with a sly grin, the lion with a regal scowl, the hyena with a sly smirk. Meanwhile, the black protagonist is depicted with distinct, dignified features. His face and posture reflect thoughtfulness and resolve. Notice
And
how
patient.
even in moments of defeat or struggle, his visage remains proud and human. The filmmakers use music and narration to reinforce the mood. The composer Ivar Arsev was known for evocative scores, mournful drums and plaintive woodwinds evoking Africa's soul, while a measured voiceover tells the story with gravitas. One viewer praised the orchestral music that bookends the cartoon as serene, heightening its bittersweet poetry. In short, every artistic decision from color choice to camera angle seems geared to respect the subject. There is none of the slapstick or derision typical of many cartoons at the time. Critically, even in its art style, the animators reinforce the message: the protagonist is drawn as a human being, never a caricature. A modern reviewer observes that while
He's the only one that is portrayed as a human. The other ones are the one being portrayed as animals.
American cartoons still trafficked in racist tropes, this film gave its hero an actual human being treatment. This is vividly clear in close-up scenes. His eyes are calm, his strength palpable. The film's design choices underscore that this black man is the story's hero, not a background prop. Why does a 15-minute cartoon from 1963 matter today? For several reasons. First, its perspective was far ahead of its time. As one commentator notes, the African Tale's themes have aged far better than those of mid-century American cartoons,
Yeah, that's crazy,
which were then
man.
often on the verge of being minstrel shows or romanticizing colonial exploits. In other words, even in 1963, this Soviet film offered a more progressive portrayal of African identity than most Western media of the era. Unlike many contemporaneous works, it grants its black protagonist complexity and agency qualities often still missing in later portrayals. This makes it resonate powerfully today. Secondly, the film reframes the historical narrative. Western education often glossed over or justified colonialism. Here, animators depict it raw as exploitation and deception. The fact that it was released the same year Kenya became independent is not a coincidence. The cartoon stands as a piece of political art, a moral fable preaching that freedom and dignity trump the hollow gifts of an occupier. In doing so, it honors voices rarely heard in Cold War media. It reminds us that even in 1960s Soviet cinema, empathy for Africa could be strong and poetic. Finally, The African Tale has a unique legacy in animation. It is often cited by animation enthusiasts as a hidden gem. One notes it as anti-colonialism at its best. Another calls it a fascinating anti-colonialism fable. Its very existence has inspired questions and discussions online. Why did the USSR produce this cartoon? What does it say about art under Soviet rule? For African viewers, it offers a rare early example of seeing themselves as empowered rather than mocked. Even now, it can serve as a teaching tool about propaganda, history, and the power of storytelling. As one fan observes, in The African Tale, black characters were granted more compassion and love than most modern programs. In short, this little film endures because it gave dignity and voice to those denied it. In the end, The African Tale stands as both a historical curiosity and a timeless fable. It begins with a simple, open question: who will prevail, the lone villager or the parade of civilized predators? And by the closing frames, it answers emphatically: resistance and cunning restore justice. The final image of the smoldering hut and scattering beasts still rings with victory and warning alike. We are left with an open loop. What other stories from the past have we missed, where art quietly challenged power? Perhaps
Yeah, that's very good. Now, you have to ask. Here's the thing: it's always from the perspective of Westerners that we have to just see some of the stuff. We don't know, man. This could be a portray. This you got to that conclusion, but probably they were just trying to portray something else. Of course, this is the conclusion of the narrator of this video. I don't know. That's the conclusion that a lot of these USSR cartoon productions wanted to get. Probably they wanted to just portray a different perspective of the situation. We don't know, or simply they just want to portray what they think was happening. But all this deep thought, I don't even know if that was the case, to be honest. To be honest, because a lot of these progressive stuff, that's more language of today's political landscape. It has nothing to do with what happens back then. Yeah, that's my opinion. Very very good. It's typical USSR cartoon. Uh, I like I like some of the USSR cartoon because there's no weird stuff going on. No weird Disney kind of weird message going on. I like that they're very plain, very artistic in some weird way. You know what I mean. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. We'll see you in the next one.